So, hey, we need to do an emergency video here, even though it's just the day after Thanksgiving. Listen, the news about this, what they're calling the double tap of the boat. So, the first strike on the boat in Venezuela, I guess Pete Hegseth had given the order that there are to be no survivors, which in and of itself is not a legal order. But regardless, gave that order. And we could even argue about whether this whole boat campaign is legal or not. I think there's obviously huge issues with it, but let's even put that aside because something way more egregious happened. So the very first strike, the boat is struck, and again, this is the very first boat in the whole campaign. It's struck, they're looking on it on infrared or on daylight TV cameras, and once the smoke basically clears from it, they notice that there are two men holding on to the boat that survived the strike, okay? Holding on, surviving. Now, let me just tell you what happened. The commander made the decision, SEAL Team 6, to go and finish these two off and kill them, okay? Let me just be very clear. That is illegal. So here's the rule in the water, not to mention the fact that at that moment, those two are not combatants because they've been in effect neutralized. This is the equivalent of shooting a prisoner, shooting somebody who's surrendering, or shooting a civilian, which obviously gets done, but the United States opposes and is a war crime. So there's that whole thing, which is they're unarmed combatants at that moment. They do not have, even if you want to argue that the people with a boat carrying drugs represents a clear and present danger. At that point, there is no boat. Very likely the drugs are gone because the boat was struck. And you have two people that are just simply trying to survive. The obligation then at that point for the United States is to actually rescue those two. We're obligated. It's also the law of the maritime law, which is a distressed sailor or a distressed boater, regardless of national origin, regardless of anything, you save them. In World War II, one of the biggest issues we had with the Japanese were if you had like a downed airman in the water or people that had, a boat went down, so people bailed and abandoned ship, and they're sitting around floating on debris, or they're floating in their life jackets. The Japanese were coming and strafing them, and it was a huge war crime, huge issue. In fact, there's so many stories about, the U.S. shoots a Japanese U-boat or whatever, or a German U-boat or whatever. And then we turn to, once we know the area is secure, to rescuing people. And Americans have been rescued by enemy boats. What Hegseth ordered was a strike against basically illegitimate targets. So at that point, unarmed, and it violated the maritime law. Now, here's the thing, and people will say sometimes, and I hear it, which is like, well, the terrorist would do it, so why shouldn't we? It's because that's what makes us not terrorists. The fact that we have we're very good at war. We're very lethal. We can basically destroy whatever we put our mind to it. But we do have humanity behind it, which is when somebody's distressed, we will help them. It also, in World War II, for instance, U.S. prisoners were treated well by Germans, relatively speaking. Why is that? Because Germans in the United States were treated relatively well when they were captured. So how we treat people often leads to how we are treated ourselves. So not only is Hegseth, I think, very liable for a potential war crime here, so is the commander that ordered this second strike, because this gets into that realm of illegal orders and when you should resist an illegal order, particularly if you're in a command position. That commander absolutely should have known better. So there's going to be a lot more information that comes out on this, but this looks like a pure and simple war crime. Unfortunately. And it looks like a war crime that was blessed from the highest levels. Now, are these people going to be held accountable? I don't know. I think Donald Trump is going to basically pardon everybody by the time he leaves office. And we know he's not going to prosecute. But if there's any more stories like this, this is egregious, and this is way below the honor of the United States military. And so keep watching this to see what happens. But I got to tell you, this is gross. This is disgusting. This violates both laws of decency, maritime laws, POW laws, and how we do armed conflict. Not to mention that the whole strike on the boat campaign, in the first place, has not even been authorized by Congress. Man, we are dealing with amateurs and evil amateurs at that. Pete Hegseth is, all he cares about is performance. He wants to look tough. So he translate that into like, let's kill everybody, which by the way is not strength. That's what weak people do. Strong people know when to stop and to show mercy. It's absolutely disgusting. So if you're a Republican member of Congress out there, and I know some of them watch my stuff, by the way, and you don't ask questions about this, you are complicit. You're complicit. You have a responsibility now, which is to get to the bottom of what happened. I expect you to, even though I know many of you are cowards and won't. This is your responsibility.